I'm honored to have on my show right now the gentleman who played Denis Lemieux, which was the goalie we saw there, Yvon Barrette. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well. Happy to talk with you guys.
Yeah, I'm very happy to talk to you through a mutual friend, Perry Lefko. We're able to do this interview, and I'll mention something later on about what you're up to right now. But again, that movie is old. And yet it's timeless because people still like that movie. People still talk about that movie. You're an actor, you're a professional actor by trade. And yet, is that the movie when people see you, they say, oh yeah, man, I remember you from that movie Slapshot?
Now a lot of people and everywhere in the world, they did funny translation in Germany too. When we go to Germany, I have to learn some German lines. I've been to United Kingdom, Scotland last year, and everybody knows the movie, the lines and everything, and they enjoy it. It's the hockey world grabbed that movie as a mascot, let's say. Yeah, it's playing in every buses. That's funny.
And that's true, right? If you ask hockey players, like junior hockey players, they're going on a 10-hour road trip or a 14-hour road trip. Inevitably, I use that word again, Slapshot will be played on the bus because it's just they can identify with it. And even if it's over the top with the humor, it is still...
Yeah, I think the main thing is that there are no stars in Slapshot except Newman, but not a hockey star. It's a bunch of nobodies who get together and work hard to win a cup. And everybody is able to identify what one or other character. And I think that's why they like it. And it's close to the reality. I think Nancy Dowd, that script has been written by a lady, Nancy Dowd, and she made almost a documentary, and I think it's the reason why people can identify so well with it.
I read a book recently, and the book is all about Slapshot. This book came out about a year or so ago. And
that's great. And that's a fantastic story. I learned a lot myself from that book.
Yeah, it's interesting how someone, I can't remember his name, but he wrote the book, and he goes through the whole history of how this movie came about. You mentioned...
Tom Jackson.
Yeah, you mentioned Nancy Dowd, and she wrote it about her brother who played in the minor hockey leagues, and that's how it's based.
Yeah, it's based on the team, the Jets, the Johnstown Jets team. His brother, Ned, was playing with the Charlestown Chiefs, and he was badly injured, and he was good enough to make the National Hockey League, but that injury just put a hand to his career. And Ned was working with us in the movie. He was the guy who portrayed Augie Oglethorpe.
That's one of the more famous names in the movie, for sure.
Okay, Gilthorpe, yeah. I know we met the real Gilthorpe. he was somebody. Yeah. He has to spend at least a night in every town he played in every jails.
So the story is that you're not a hockey player, so you basically, practiced for the role like 6 months before the actual movie started to take place, just to get used to playing hockey. Is that correct?
Like everybody in Quebec, I was on skate at 5 years old, and I used to play junior hockey, not junior hockey, but school hockey.
Yeah. And
but never as a goalie. I was playing forward. So for me, it was a new job in the goals. But I was going to do my own stunts, and I was ready to do it. And I had some good practice. And but just the day before we start shooting, we were rehearsing on the ice, and I made a save. But I was missing a part of equipment, so I was injured. I stopped the puck with the interior part of my knee, and it went very big, and I was laying on the ice, and George O'Hill came to me and said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I made the save."
Yeah.
But it was too much. I had to be on crutches for a a week and a half.
Yeah, the story was, I read, originally it was supposed to be 3 weeks. You were in hospital for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Paul Newman came into the hospital. Paul Newman gave you a bottle of wine, a very expensive bottle of wine.
It was not in the hospital, but everybody came to my room. Alan Nichols had written a song. They wanted me to be Denis Lemieux, and I was afraid to be betrayed because of the injury. They had to change the shooting schedule, and they had to remake their plans a bit. But I made it, and I'm happy to have done it. That's a great part to play, and Denis Lemieux was close to my personality. So that was interesting.
You had a lot of, I guess Michael Onkin was one of the actors, and I'm, what's his name? Is it Barry Hauser? I think is his last name. I may have gotten that wrong.
He had played the year before in Summer 42.
Yeah, I remember that movie, but you had a lot of dialogue there, and some very interesting scenes that, when people go over, talk about Slapshot, they go about that scene, like the Hanson Brothers playing with their trains. But you had some interesting scenes too. We just played the clip right now of you getting interviewed and explaining what slashing is.
Talking.
Yeah, and when you got the dialogue, when you read the lines, did you think this is hilarious? Like, this thing is going to be the funniest thing I've ever done?
That was funny. I'm living 500 miles east of Montreal. I received a call in the morning asking me, would you like to do a movie with Paul Newman? I said, sure. And they said, it's very serious. You have to be in Montreal tonight by 6 o'clock to meet Mike Fenton, who was the casting director. George Royal was already back in California. And a friend of mine was leading George Royal and Mike Fenton through the French artistic colony in Montreal. They were looking for a short, squat French-Canadian. And they were unhappy with 500 auditions they had made in the early week. And a friend of mine was leading, so he brought them to see a movie we done the year before together. And from that point, they said, we want to see him today. And I had to be there, and I made it 5 minutes before 6 in the Ritz-Carlton, called Mr. Fenton at his room, and he said, oh, you made it, fantastic. And he brought me to Brasserie to have a dinner. But I was not hungry. I wanted to know what was the movie. And he said, well, the movie starts on you. And he told the story, the old story. I went back to his room, read the script, and around midnight, I auditioned on the tape recorder, and he gave me the lines. And after the audition, he started improvising after we have done the line, the few pages. And he said, yes, I think you will be Denis Lemieux. And that was it.
Did you have any idea, either when you were doing the movie or after the movie was completed, how much of a cult film it would be, like the type of film that people would remember like 20, 30, 40 years later?
It's impossible to figure out. That's something magic. People decided to. There is no there is no way to go to it. It has to come from the reality people make out of it. And for me, it was completely quiet for 20 years. My friends knew that I had made Slapshot, but I had no events, no appearances at all. But somebody from California found me on internet, and he became a close friend. His name is Ken Blake. Mm-hmm. He had a website, slapshotfan.com, and he sent me. My son had made a web page with some pictures from the movie, French Canadians movie I'd done. I had already done a few before Slapshot. And he saw those pictures, and he sent me a mail asking me, were you the guy who portrayed Denis Lemieux? Then the picture, which was on the web page, was a picture from an historical movie I made in 2000. So I said yes, and said, would you sign box for me? I said, what do you want me to sign on it? And he said, right, Denis Lemieux, number 1, and Yvon Barrette, and okay, and he sent me a box of coffee. He was working for a coffee company, and those 6 pucks. And when I sent back the puck to him, I put a call sheet from the movie in the box. So he was able to get in touch with most of the actors and everybody who worked on the movie. And doing that, he met our cheerleaders, 2 tall blonde girls, Louise and Janet Arthurs. And he realized that Louise had multiple sclerosis.
Oh, that's too bad.
And he was touched by the fact and came back to me asking me if I was interested to help him to raise money through Slapshot fans to help Louise. And I said, sure, I will. And I gave him my original script, and it all started from there. We went back to Philadelphia, and we went back to Johnstown, and at this point, I realized the movie was doing great. We start signing autographs at 7 o'clock, just before the game starts. We did the puck drop, went back to the tables, and were able to get out of the War Memorial at 1 in the morning. There were 3,000 people there, and they all left with a picture.
So let me ask you a question. There were some funny scenes in the movie. I'll ask you about one in particular, actually a couple, but one in particular is the scene where all you guys drop your pants and moon. And you know, basically, you're in the bus, you drop your pants and you moon the cheerleaders, or I forget who it was actually, but
I will never tell you in which window.
Okay. But I mean, that was kind of like the craziness of this film, that, you know, they would ask you to do stuff like this and you did it.
Oh, yes, but that was a fantastic week. It was, we were a bunch of guys. We were having fun. We were working with one of the greatest director, George Royal, was a fantastic guy. I was with Mr. Paul Newman. For me, it was a privilege to work with such actors, Strother Martin, and all those guys were coming from New York, from everywhere, and we became close very quickly. And the fact that Newman was the only big star in the movie, he was we were always together, like a hockey team. You know, it was quite different from other shooting I had.
What about fight scenes? What do you recall about that? Because we're looking at some of them right now.
Repeat, please.
What do you recall about the fight scenes? Because that was a big part of the movie, the fighting.
Yeah, that was quite dangerous. We rehearsed a little bit, but the danger was not coming from the guy you were fighting with, but there were people all around you, and I received a skate blade just by the ear, and I was lucky not to be more badly injured. Mm-hmm. We were lucky.
There was also a scene in you guys are on the bus and you're playing cards, and you got a fair amount of lines in that one.
Yeah.
And it's something that there's a line like, you know, you lost your shirt and you said it in French, so it wasn't quite the way it translated.
Oh.
But again, very, very funny scenes. You know, you're there with you, Paul Newman, Michael Onkeen. I forget who was the 4th actor, but I mean, you mentioned about, you know, few actors would have the opportunity in their lifetime to do a movie with Paul Newman, in which Paul Newman is basically like one of the guys. Because the way I understand it, Paul Newman was a huge star, but he was just like very, very low profile. Didn't have an ego. Was just one of the guys.
Oh no, absolutely one of the guys, and he was that kind of actor who would say, Yvon, we have that thing to do tomorrow morning, and if you want to come to my room, and we will work on it. And it was very, very close. And I had the privilege to be a little closer because I was speaking French, and his children were learning French in high school, and he wanted to to write letters in French, so I was helping him to do that. And the Jets were still playing. They were in playoffs just before we start shooting the movie. And when we had to go to the War Memorial, I was the guy who watched the game with him in the news box upstairs, because it was impossible for him to be through the crowds. Johnstown was, that was fantastic. The place he took in Johnstown, there were black and white posters of him in stores, and with blue eyes. Black and white poster with blue eyes.
Interesting. So the obvious question is a question that's been asked many times. Who owned the Chiefs?
Owns.
And I guess if people ask you, do they ask you that a lot?
That's one of the lines I have to learn in German, and that's their favorite line. And in German, it is "Wem gehört the Chiefs?"
All right, Yvon, we talked a lot about Slapshot. I wanted to ask you about Stop Concussions. You're involved with that. How did you get involved with that?
I met Perry Goulet a couple of years ago, and he was at this moment working with, No, okay. He was working with somebody else, but I did some events with him. We went twice in Germany, because Kerry did his professional career in Germany, and we went to United Kingdom together, and I did a lot of events with him in Toronto and in the States, and we became close friends, and for the third time now I'm going in Germany. And I met friends there too. The second life of Slapshot is fantastic. Most of the time it's relating to fundraising, and I met very interesting people. So that's good to be able to do something. And Stop Concussions is a serious point. Look at the professional hockey those days. Most of the players are badly injured. Not most, but a lot. And it's becoming very dangerous. So we have to do something.
Well, Yvon, I want to thank you a lot for your time today. Good that you're working with Stop Concussions. It's great to talk about Slapshot. Certainly to talk to you about it. You have a lot of memories from it, and it's a
yes, I have a lot.
it's a movie that will be timeless. That for years and years and years people talk about it. Although they did a repeat of the movie, and that didn't do very well.
I never saw it, to be honest. I don't want to see it. I was a little pissed off at the guys because that I think it might have been funnier if they had brought more people from the first one.
Well, the movie was called Slapshot 2: Breaking the Ice. It didn't break the ice. It bombed, okay? Because sometimes you can't mess with an original product. You try to do a sequel, it doesn't work. They should have never done a sequel to Slapshot.
Yeah. The Hanson Brothers saw that movie as their own life story.
Yeah.
The beginning. And, it's almost true. What can we say? And they did the life, they did the living out of it, which is okay too.
But you know what? I want to thank you, Yvon, for spending time with me this morning. It was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we'll catch up sometime, maybe meet in person, because it's just a wonderful opportunity to talk to you about Slapshot. Great movie. Thanks again for spending time with us.
My pleasure, Perry.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Yvon Barrette played Denis Lemieux in the movie Slapshot. Coming up, I'll be speaking with Rob Murphy, former NFL CFL player. He played for the San Francisco 49ers at one point in his career, so maybe he'll talk about, is he cheering for San Fran? Is he cheering for Baltimore? A lot of good storylines from this particular Super Bowl coming up. Got the Harbaugh brothers, Ray Lewis. Lots and lots of things to talk about. We'll talk with Rob Murphy right after this.